Okay, good evening, and welcome. My name is Steve Mennel. I'm the president of the Mistick Historical Society. Thank you for joining us for the first talk of our program for 2023 and 2024. I'll mention what the other talks are in a minute or so. So thank you for joining us for the start of our speaker program. We actually did kind of start our program of activities last Saturday. We had an open house at the Portersville Academy where we had artwork displayed thanks to Jonathan Sproul, one of our life members, who's collected artwork that was done by the Mistick Art Colony in the early 1900s or so. We had a walking tour that was planned and it poured, so obviously we did not do that. We will reschedule that at some point. So we'll keep you posted on that. I want to thank Elizabeth Boucher who put all that effort into putting the walking tour together, and we're going to do that. She also was largely responsible for organizing the open house. Thank you, Betsy. But anyway, so we'll keep you posted on when we are going to do that walking tour. Obviously, I'll be emailing members about that. It'll be in our newsletter. If those of you that are here tonight that aren't members, if you want to give us your email address, there's a sheet in the back. If you want to become members, there's applications too. But anyway, so we'll take care of that. Thank you. Just to let you know what's coming up next after tonight's talk. In December, on December 6th, we're going to have Marilyn Comrie speaking to us tonight, talking to us again. And it'll be a trip down memory lane. We have some photos from the 1970s and the 1980s, and we're going to go through those. Then we've got a bit of a break because of the holidays. And in February, we're going to have Larry Wilson talking to us about Black history as it's related to Mistick. On March 27th, we're going to have Rebecca Donahue talking about the history of New England maritime knitting, which is kind of interesting. And that's kind of in Women's History Month, so trying to be in tune with that. April 24th, we are going to have Joan Sinkovich talk to us. She's from the Mistick Garden Club, and they're celebrating their 100th anniversary. There seem to be a lot of round number anniversaries going on. So anyway, that's on April. And on May 22nd, we'll be having Barbara Nagy, who has spoken to us before, and Rick Gipstein talking to us about Dudley St. Clair Donnelly, the architect who shaped southeastern Connecticut. And also, April, we've got two things going. We're also going to have a walking tour of the on the Groton side of Mistick, based on the Helen Clark Diaries. Marilyn Comrie had done that a couple times a couple years ago, and we're going to do that again. Once again, we'll keep everybody posted as these events come up, but that's kind of the program for the year. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marilyn.
Oh, my.
Marilyn is our vice president. She's a Mistick native. She's been a member of the Historical Society for 46 years. Didn't quite make the cut, I guess, as a charter member.
No, I wasn't old enough.
And asked her for more than that, but she says, oh, it's not relevant to my talk. So with that, Marilyn.
Let's see if I'm all hooked up here. Okay. So this is the 50th anniversary year of Old Mistick Village and Mistick Marine Life Aquarium, as it was known when it opened on October 6, 1973. These two iconic Mistick landmarks opened just a month apart. Old Mistick Village on September 11th, 1973, and the aquarium just 3.5 weeks later. It marked the beginning of Mistick's evolution into the state's #1 tourist destination, bringing millions of visitors every year to our seaside village. Mistick Aquarium and the Mistick Seaport Museum draw more than 1 million visitors every year. When Old Mistick Village and the aquarium opened, Richard Nixon was in the first year of his second term as president. The Vietnam War was winding down and the Watergate investigation was heating up. 4 days after the aquarium opened, Gerald Ford was sworn in as Vice President of the United States, replacing Spiro Agnew, who resigned in disgrace. Ford would be elevated to president less than a year later when Nixon was forced to resign in disgrace. In Connecticut, the governor was Thomas Meskel, And locally, Stonington's first selectman was Jim Spellman, and the mayor of the town of Groton was J. Neil Spillane. And Neil is a charter member of the Mystic River Historical Society, and he's usually here at the meetings, but he's not here tonight. But he's part of the story.
99 and a half, too.
Yes, he's 99 years old, but he still gets out to the meetings. So we can attribute the beginning of the growth of Mistick as a tourist destination to the opening of the aquarium in Old Mistick Village. But the real genesis occurred nearly a decade earlier, in December 1964, when the portion of I-95 from East Lyme to the Rhode Island border opened. That provided a direct path for tourists to get to Mistick. Interstate 95 has two exits to get to Mistick, exit 89 on the Groton side and exit 90 on the Stonington side. And the evolution of those two exits shows the difference between the ways the towns of Groton and Stonington welcomed tourism traffic. We'll get to that story. Next slide. Okay, so these are aerial maps of Mistick, and I'm going to see if I can show you what's going on. On the left is 1951, and this is the Mistick River right here. This is River Road. Endless Road is here, and this is High Street. So this is where the scenic overlook would be, and the highway would go right through there. And then on the far side, this is after the highway has been built. This is 1965, so Fieldcrest Estates has been built up on Cow Hill Road. And here is exit 89, and it ended right as you got off the highway. This is Sandy Hollow Road. There was no Allen Street. So when you came off exit 89, you had to take a left on Sandy Hollow and either go down and take Pequot Avenue or High Street into Mistick. And then on this side over here is the exit for exit 90 on the Stonington side with the Route 27. So the land around exit 90 in 1964 was farmland up until the interstate was built. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so this shows, hold on here, I'm really good at this. So here's the Mistick River, and this is where the aquarium and Old Mistick Village are today. So the road would come right across here. This is all farm. This is Route 27, and all of this was farmland. And here's Elm Grove Cemetery down here. And then in 65, the highway is there. Here are the exits. There's still no building here, no Coogan Boulevard or anything, but this is the highway once it was put in. No, that got built later. Okay, so in 1964, when the highway opened, exit 90 was ripe for the pickings for development because it was all farmland. In 1964, as the highway was getting ready to open, Martin Olson, who had developed the shopping centers in other parts of Connecticut, including the Groton Shopping Center on Long Hill Road, bought the 38-acre Barnes property for $138,000. A year later, Olson sold some of the land to Seaport Motor Lodge for $55,000. And the Old Mistick Motor Lodge bought land and buildings from Dr. Peter C. Ross for $125,000. Commercial development of the Route 27 Coogan Boulevard, Jerry Brown Road triangle had begun. The really intense development there began 7 years later in 1971, the year the second span of the Gold Star Bridge began construction over the Thames River. The state put through the Allen Street connector off I-95 on the Groton side at exit 89. And Stonington and Groton installed a sewer system in downtown Mistick. Stonington was ready to go full throttle with development. On July 24th, 1971, Mistick Aquarium paid Martin Olson $420,000 for a 12-acre tract along Coogan Boulevard. The sale was the most expensive land purchase to date in Stonington, $35,000 an acre. The proposed project for the site was a $2 million marine life aquarium. Construction on that project began later that year. 3 days before the aquarium land purchase, Olson unveiled plans for a 36-store mall on the 19 acres next to the aquarium site. He proposed a department store plan with an anchor store at each end. Friends and colleagues had repeatedly told him that a mall was not the right project for the site, but he persisted. And this is one of several proposals he would make before his twin children, Jerry and Joyce, stepped in with their concept for Old Mistick Village. At the same Stonington Planning and Zoning Commission meeting where Olson proposed his mall, Ramada Inn outlined its 126-room, two-story motor lodge to be built on the former Norman Lamb farm on Route 27 north of the interstate. It would be the fourth motel at the interchange. The area around Exit 90 would soon be dubbed the Golden Triangle for all the development and tax dollars it was bringing to Stonington. Development was viewed as progress. It was an opportunity to expand the tax base, Stonington town planner Bob Birmingham said. In 1971, when the development push was getting underway, the top taxpayer in the town of Stonington was Mistick Seaport Museum Stores. By 1986, the stores were number 10, behind Old Mistick Village, Ramada Inn, and the Aquarium, before the Aquarium attained nonprofit status. Next slide. Okay, so the slide on the left here, there's the river, here's Exit 90. This is where Old Mistick Village is going to be built. It hasn't been built yet, but Coogan Boulevard's been built. Here's the entrance ramp back onto the highway, and here's the foundation for the Aquarium. So this is 1971. This is 1986, and it's looking from Groton toward Stonington. Here's Exit 90 again. Here is Old Mistick Village, all built, and the Aquarium, and Mistick Hilton has just opened up here. So Jerry Olson and his sister Joyce Olson Regan finally came up with a plan for what would occupy the 19 acres at the north corner of Route 27 and Coogan Boulevard. They conceived a $3 million 46-store shopping center with a grocery store, 2 drive-up banks, 2 movie theaters, a church, a general store, a duck pond, a gazebo, and a meeting house, all disguised as an 18th century New England village. Next slide. And here's the original sign for Old Mistick Village in 1973, excuse me. Okay, next slide. So it's important to remember that when Old Mistick Village opened, it wasn't geared totally toward tourists. It was a shopping center with a grocery store, a bookstore, clothing stores, family-style eateries such as Newport Creamery, and even a fabric store with clothes, and you could buy cloth and sewing notions. Next slide. Here's a list of the original stores in Old Mistick Village in 1973. I found a full-page ad for the village in the August 3rd, 1973 edition of The Day, which surprised me because the Old Mistick Village website says that the village opened on September 11th, 1973, but September 11th was the official opening. The August 3rd ad showed that the village actually had a rolling opening, with some of the stores opening in August, some in September, and some in October. The August 3rd ad boasts Old Mistick Village, an American revolution in shopping. Old Mistick Village, where yesterday meets tomorrow. The revolution is here. Come and witness it. Old Mistick Village is Connecticut's newest historic attraction. Old Mistick Village makes shopping fun again. After it officially opened on September 11th, 1973, tourists coming off the highway mistook Old Mistick Village for Mistick Seaport and were asking, "Where's the whaling ship?" J. Revel Carr, who was the curator at the Seaport in 1973, said he consoled a visitor who lamented to him that she had trudged through Old Mistick Village for an hour, thinking she was at the Seaport. "Well," Carr said of Old Mistick Village, "we both have meeting houses. It was bound to happen." So here are some of the original stores from Old Mistick Village in 1973. Next.
Is the steak loft the only one left still?
Oh, no. Well, actually, I have a picture of one of the other ones that is still, but yeah, the steak loft, I don't have a picture of that one. So here's a Yankee drummer. Next. The store. Next, this is what the toy soldier. That's still there, and it's still in the original building. Yeah, it's a toy store. It's been there, and you can tell it's brand new because there's nothing behind it. Next, here's the Pioneer Sandwich Shop. Next, Newport Creamery, which is, I think, the Jealous Monk or something now. Yes. Next. So here's the Old Mistick Pharmacy. Next, the Country Mouse. Next, Camps of Mistick. Next, the store. Next, Village Pots and Plants. Next one. On the right is the general store, but you can still see the toy store in the background. Next. And here are the meeting house and the duck pond and the grist mill. 2 months after its opening, the New York Times sent a reporter to write about the unique shopping experience. And it's obvious from the tone of the story, total snark, that the reporter thought the whole concept was ridiculous. At one point in the interview, the reporter refers to Old Mistick Village as a shopping center, and Joyce and Jerry are indignant. Shopping center, Joyce huffs. To me, that's a strip mall or shopping center or a strip mall. Saying shopping center cheapens it. It's a full-fledged town, Jerry interjected. The reporter poked fun at the 18th century village concept, describing the village as being a harpoon's throw north of Mistick Seaport. She writes, when it opened, Old Mistick Village consisted of 24 pine-paneled buildings containing 95,000 square feet of retail space, stained colonial red, green, and gray, clustered off curvy streets with quaint names like Dingley Dell. The closest thing the village has to water is a duck pond. It has a grist mill that grinds no grain, and a meeting house open to community groups, if anyone wants to use it. Merchants do not use strip lighting, acoustical ceilings, or asphalt tile to keep in the spirit of the 18th century. The IGA grocery store obeys a ban on flyers to advertise weekly specials. No signs in the windows listing pork chops or chicken wings on sale. Air conditioners are hidden in behind bushes. Joyce Regan was clearly on the defensive in this interview. She told the reporter there were a lot worse things that could have been built at the Exit 90 interchange. You could have a motel alley here or a gasoline alley, she said. It's zoned commercial. The Martin Olson Company built a year-round full-service shopping center catering to local trade. And we consider local trade a 2-hour drive away. The reporter also noted the Olsons would like to add residences to Old Mistick Village with condos. It's in the back of my mind, Joyce said. That would make it a real village. It was kind of fun to read that article from 50 years ago and realize that Jerry and Joyce Olson had a winning concept after all. The duck pond in the middle of the village has become iconic. All kinds of people use the meeting house and the gazebo. Old Mistick Village is a part of the fabric of Mistick today, even though the grocery store is long gone, as well as most of the original stores. We can also credit the Olsons and Old Mistick Village with getting rid of some of Connecticut's archaic blue laws. In 1973, Connecticut did not allow any places of business to be open on Sundays. But the stores at Old Mistick Village defied that from the very beginning. They received warnings from the police as early as August 10th, but they persisted. The day newspaper consistently ran articles of village stores being cautioned not to be open on Sundays. They obeyed for a while, but once the Aquarium opened, they went full throttle. They were open Sundays from then on, and eventually the blue law was done away with. And what a difference 50 years makes in news coverage. Today, Mistick is a top tourist destination in Connecticut, and when things happen here, it's likely to make the front page. And a good example was last Saturday, where the whole front page was about the Hallmark movie that was filmed at Old Mistick Village that was going to be on TV Saturday night. But how big was the news that Old Mistick Village had opened? Next slide. It ran on page 22 with the headline, Village Meeting House is dedicated to Olsons. You couldn't even find a 22-page paper today. In this article, Stonington Selectman First Selectman Jim Spellman lauded the Martin Olson family for creating a new landmark for the town of Stonington and for the people of Eastern Connecticut. Just under that article, way down at the bottom, where's my, I don't know what I did with my, I can point to it. Right here, it says Aquarium set to open October 6th. And honestly, that's the only thing I could find in the day about the opening of the aquarium. When I went to October 6th, there was nothing. So it must have been a very soft opening. Next slide. But the aquarium still had some milestones associated with its opening. It was the first major aquarium in southern New England. It was the first in the country that was not located directly on the ocean. And it premiered the use of a specially formulated saltwater environment, enabling fish and other ocean-going creatures to live in tanks not fed by the ocean. And it also provided close-up views of marine life. Originally called Mistick Marine Life Aquarium, it opened as a privately owned corporation behind the financing of Kelwin Smith, a chemist with an interest in marine biology. The aquarium rapidly grew in popularity. The first beluga whales arrived in 1976, and the facility also rehabilitated whales, dolphins, seals, and sea turtles from beaches and coves from Greenwich, Connecticut to Fall River, Massachusetts. Next slide. So here are some of the early advertising for things that were going on at the aquarium. Next slide. And here are some of the early marine demonstrations. They're so, you can tell they're old. Okay, next one. Here's some more. Very amateurish looking. And then here's the next one. In 1997, Kelvin Smith dissolved Mistick Marine Life Aquarium and established the nonprofit Sea Research Foundation. And on May 1st, 1998, Mistick Aquarium became an arm of the foundation and a nonprofit marine science research and education institute. By 1992, the aquarium had 765,000 annual visitors, making it Connecticut's top tourist attraction. The following year, that was usurped by Foxwoods Resort Casino. By the early 1990s, southeastern Connecticut was pulling in the tourists who came to see Mistick Seaport, the Nautilus Museum, the aquarium, and to gamble at Foxwoods. In December 1992, the aquarium bought 26 acres directly across Coogan Boulevard as it eyed the southeastern region's developing tourism economy. Next slide. So this is another picture of the Golden Triangle in 1986. And so you can see here's the exit again, here's Old Mistick Village, and then the Mistick Hilton's been built. This is the aquarium, and even Bob Valenti has his place out here now on Jerry Brown Road. In the early 1970s, as the Golden Triangle was changing the landscape around Exit 90, another movement was sweeping the nation. As America approached its 200th birthday in 1976, historic preservation became a byword across the country. As developers were redefining the area around Route 27, Coogan Boulevard, and Jerry Brown Road, people who lived in Mistick began to worry about the encroaching development. Unlike Stonington, Groton had never embraced the let's increase the tax base no matter the consequences approach to tourism. In fact, residents on the Groton side of the river made it clear they didn't want tourist traffic congesting their residential neighborhoods. Nowhere was this clearer than in the neighborhood around Allen Street, Library Street, and New London Road. Next slide. So this is a picture of Allen Street. I took this picture back in the spring. They've repaved Allen Street since then, so it has a whole different look. The left side, this is Allen Street looking toward the highway. And in 1971, the existing Allen Street was a dead-end road. It ran from the stoplight at the intersection with New London Road and West Mistick Avenue to the intersection with Edgecombe Street, maybe about a quarter to a third of a mile. So this is where it ended, right here. This is Edgecombe Street. And then on this side, this is Sandy Hollow Road looking back Allen Street toward Mistick. So So beyond this was a swath of the Pequot Woods that extended from where Allen Street ended to Sandy Hollow Road. After Interstate 95 was completed, the state of Connecticut notified the town of Groton that it intended to create a new 1.2-mile state highway, the Allen Street Connector, which would cut a major road through the Pequot Woods to connect Allen Street with exit 89 at I-95, providing a direct path to downtown Mistick for cars coming off the highway. Groton was gobsmacked, especially those residents who lived on Allen Street, Library Street, and New London Road, who would be the recipients of all the traffic from the highway. The state contended the highway was necessary to bring traffic into Mistick via both I-95 Mistick exits and ease congestion downtown at the bridge. It initially proposed a 4-lane highway for Allen Street because such a lot of traffic was anticipated. So began a 2-year-long battle to try to stop construction of the road. Residents in the Allen Street neighborhood formed the group Trees to reassess environment, ecology, and safety, and they protested the project at every turn. The town of Groton also managed to delay the project as it asked for concessions. One of the concessions it received was that Allen Street would be a 2-lane road instead of a 4-lane highway. Nevertheless, when the bulldozers arrived to start construction of the highway, the Trees group blocked access. Of course, the bulldozers won. Next slide. So this is a picture of Allen Street when the trees were knocked down. This is, Bert Kimball took this photo, so it was taken from the Allen Street end looking towards Sandy Hollow Road, but this is the swath they cut through the Pequot Woods. On June 5th, 1972, Town of Groton Mayor J. Neil Spillane cut the ribbon to open the new road. Next slide. So here's the day article. Allen Street Highway opens. The ceremony was scheduled to start at 11 a.m., but it was delayed 20 minutes while officials rubbed out some 4-letter words that had been painted about a quarter of the way down the highway. Mayor Spillane, who lives in that neighborhood, gave a short speech. "It is an honor to dedicate the first new road in the town in many years," he said. "The state kept its promises by building a 2-lane road and planting trees. Many of the worst fears of the community haven't been realized to date." Trees members did not demonstrate at the opening of the road, but its 7-member executive committee composed the following statement that was issued by Trees president Kathleen O'Byrne. And Kathleen is sitting right here. Kathleen, I'm going to read what you said on June 5th, 1972. "The opening of the Allen Street Connector is not a cause for celebration. It is an occasion for sorrow. It has been a bitter experience to observe what a combination of ignorance and selfishness can do to a community. The day is gone when a new state road is an automatic symbol of growth and progress. Rather, today it is a symbol of bureaucratic exploitation of people and communities. People must insist that elected officials and entrenched bureaucrats stop serving special interests and start concerning themselves with the total well-being of the community." Okay, next. Okay, so here on the left, this is the Allen Street area before the connector was built. And here it is after it's been built. So they cut, here's where you come off the highway, they cut right down through here. So although a huge swath of the Pequot Woods was destroyed by the new road, Groton did get one other major concession out of it all. The state agreed that there would be no signage on Interstate 95 indicating that exit 89 was a way to get to Mistick. To this day, the highway sign for exit 89 says simply Allen Street. This remains the bone of contention between Groton and Stonington because the lack of signage at exit 89 forces all the tourist traffic headed to Mistick to use exit 90. Groton's contention has always been that the tourist attractions, Mistick Seaport, Mistick Aquarium, and Old Mistick Village, are all in Stonington, so Stonington can deal with the traffic. This attitude would come back to bite Groton a couple of decades later when the two towns were grappling with where to put public toilets downtown and who should pay for them. The Groton side of Mistick did even more to protect its portion of the village. It took a step toward historic preservation in 1975, establishing the Groton Historic District Commission and 3 historic districts, Center Groton, Burnett's Corners, and Mistick. Establishing the district required approval from 75% of the property owners within the borders for the ordinance to pass. There has been more than one controversy with the Historic District Commission in the nearly 50 years of its existence, but overall, it has helped maintain the 19th century look of the village. Groton residents backed the effort for a number of reasons: an increased awareness of the region's history, a national emphasis on historic preservation, but most importantly, something that was the result of the sudden push to make Mistick a tourist destination, rapidly rising real estate values. The biggest impetus for protecting architectural integrity came from a 1968 report prepared by the Southeastern Connecticut Regional Planning Agency, SCARPA, titled Opportunities for Historic Preservation for the Southeastern Connecticut Region. The report warned Groton that it needed to do more than read and write about its history. Without active preservation, it said, the rapidly growing town would soon have few relics from its past. It was around this same time, 1973, that the Mystic River Historical Society was founded, looking to preserve documents, photos, and the other items from the village's past. The Historical Society and the Historic District Commission, organizations that people often mix up because of the similarities in their names, actually germinated from the same seed, historic preservation. When Scarpa's report was issued, downtown Mistick was one of the parts of town that was seeing a business renaissance, and the land values were soaring. The commercialism threatened many of the village's houses, old houses. The opening of I-95 paved a road straight to Mistick, and tourism was on the rise. As Mistick Seaport gained prominence, the region's maritime history took on a greater importance. People wanted to know more about 19th century Mistick and the roots of the village. Next slide. In the late 1960s, the Mistick Junior Women's Club began a project to research the history of old houses on Gravel Street and West Mistick Avenue. Houses built before 1900 were suitably plaqued, a tradition that has extended to historic buildings on both sides of the river. And a lot of the historical information for these plaques was provided by the Mystic River Historical Society. In September 1971, the Groton Town Council appointed a Historic District Study Committee. It based its research and findings on established historic districts in Santa Fe, New Mexico, Beacon Hill in Boston, and Newport, Rhode Island. Its findings were presented at a public hearing in July 1974. According to the report, a historic district maintains the town's distinctive identity through a series of rules and regulations. New businesses or houses within the zone must have architecture and design that would harmonize with the existing structures, and all alterations, improvements, and restorations would have to blend with the district's atmosphere. State statutes pertaining to historic districts place jurisdiction for the districts in the hands of a 5-member board made up of town residents. The commission's rules on any exterior changes to buildings within the district, excluding paint color. Owners have free rein over outsides and backs of buildings, hidden outbuildings, and land to the rear of their dwellings. Residents, of course, have the right to appeal any decision. A spirit of community pride will be fostered by the existence of historic districts, the study concluded. The establishment of a historic district on the Groton side of Mistick marked the beginning of a way for residents to preserve the residential neighborhoods from the ever-growing impact of tourism. 50 years later, we're still grappling with it. Residents on both sides of the river are concerned about the proliferation of Airbnbs and the lack of parking for those of us who live here. But the Groton Historic District had a rocky start on overseeing the Mistick Historic District. Not long after it was established, a homeowner on Gravel Street applied for permission to put solar paneling on the street front roof of the house, which of course gets the best sun. The commission has jurisdiction over facades of buildings that face the street. They ruled against the solar panelings. The homeowner sued and prevailed. Next slide. The Historic District Commission came under fire again last year for a decision it made concerning this property on Gravel Street, Downing Cottage. It voted to allow the property owner to tear down the 1835 house, even though there was nothing structurally wrong with it. Residents of Mistick, spearheaded by the Historical Society, gathered signatures to protest the decision and petitioned the Connecticut Historic Commission to get involved. And the homeowner eventually backed down, and now that's the house on the left is an old picture of it. But then I took that one in the spring on the right. And of course, they've been working on it all summer, so it doesn't look quite like that anymore. But he did maintain the facade of the building, and he's building on the back of it. Okay. Still, in the 1970s, the negative press over the solar panels gave the commission a very bad image, and it gave people who were against establishing a similar historic district on the Stonington side of the river ammunition to defeat it. In August 1975, the same year that Groton established its historic district in Mistick, Stonington named a 5-member Mistick Bridge Historic District Study Committee to put together a proposal for a similar district on the Stonington side of Mistick. The aims of the study commission were to preserve 190 structures deemed significant in historical terms, as well as the maritime character of that side of the river. George Campbell, who was curator of the Stonington Lighthouse Museum at the time, was one of the 5 committee members. Recalling his work a decade later in 1987, Campbell told a reporter the committee's 2 years of research, resident surveys, and conferences with historic preservation experts went swimmingly. They expected the strong support for their proposal. But when the votes were cast early in 1977, the proposal failed miserably. It received only 59% approval when 75% of the homeowners was required. Committee members suspected that certain commercial property owners mounted a last-minute telephone campaign using scare tactics about how restrictive a historic district could be in order to torpedo the proposal. Bob Birmingham, who was the Stonington town planner at the time, said, "There is a wealth of architectural treasures certainly worth retaining on the Stonington side of Mistick. I saw the goals of establishing a historic district as not only to protect what was left there, but to make sure what came in the future was compatible with the character of the village." Stonington residents interested in preservation remained undeterred. They worked instead to get that section of Mistick, from the Mistick Seaport to the drawbridge, placed on the National Register. On August 31st, 1979, the Mistick Bridge National Register District was established. It didn't offer the protection from development that a historic district would have done, but it acknowledged the historical importance of the area by naming it to the National Register of Historic Places. The positive thing about this designation is that it underscored the historical significance of shipbuilding in Mistick in the 19th century, the same goal Mistick Seaport had been promoting for years. But this designation pointed to the importance of buildings in the actual village of Mistick, not to a recreated village tourists had been visiting at the seaport. The two together would go forward to make all of Mistick a significant tourist destination in the following decades. The past 50 years has been a constant pull and tug between developers wanting to cash in on the tourist trade in Mistick and residents who want some semblance of normalcy as more and more outsiders crowd downtown every year to eat Mistick pizza and drawbridge ice cream and watch the bridge go up and down. In 1987, 12 years after the Groton Historic District Commission was established, its members gave a newspaper interview talking about what they considered their hits and misses. Overall, the commission and the residents agreed the town was better off with the rules and regulations than without them. Sidney Gross, who was the commission chairman at the time, told the newspaper, "I would say we've brought about a gradual improvement in preserving the character of the Mistick community. There's no doubt that it certainly improved real estate values, although I don't think that should be the number one priority." She also praised Groton for being forward-thinking in establishing the historic districts before the town's major building boom began. She said the commission was well in place when the area development started. We're not a catch-up operation. It's more an ongoing thing. I've got to have a little bit of water here. Commission member Bert Kimball said he thought the commission had done a good job in maintaining the integrity of the existing buildings in Mistick and monitoring new construction. But the commission also admitted it had made some major mistakes. The biggest, next slide, approving the Steamboat Wharf condominium project. That's what the left side shows. This is what it looked like along the river before the Steamboat Wharf, and then this is it now. We had a lot of pressure brought upon us, Kimball recalled, saying he and two other commissioners had reservations about the proposal from the beginning. The owners did make a lot of changes to suit us, though, he said, before we gave approval. Part of the problem, Kimball said, is the difficulty in visualizing what a building will look like in a particular area just by looking at a blueprint. Steamboat Wharf changed the whole look of the downtown waterfront. It not only took up the entire waterfront in that location, it blocked views of the buildings behind it that had once been visible from the Stonington side of the river. I was sorry they went up, Kimball said. Some of the others said they wished they hadn't let it go through. Next slide. So this is a picture again of what it looked like before Steamboat Wharf was there. Next slide. I really like this one because this is what it looked like. This is the Steamboat Wharf parking lot. But today, Steamboat Wharf takes up all of this and all of this. It just blocks the water all the way from here, all the way to the bridge. Next slide. And this, again, is what it looked like on the left before, and then this is Steamboat Wharf over here. Okay, let's see, what's the next slide? Nope, go back. All right. So, still, Sidney Gross emphasized the positive side of the commission's work. Generally, we get good cooperation from the people who come before us, and we try to encourage that, she said. Once in a while, we hit a major snag, but usually we can work it out. The establishment of the historic district helped improve buildings all over Mistick, not just directly downtown. The Fort Rachel neighborhood benefited greatly from being within the district borders. Fort Rachel was the slum of Mistick for years. Helen Clark writes extensively about that neighborhood in her diary from the early 20th century, referring to it by its nickname, Rotten Row. One of the early buildings to get a facelift was the Daniel Packer Inn. Next slide. So there's the Daniel Packer Inn. This is it in 1976. This is the year after the historic district was established. And then the middle one is its first restoration. And then on the right is what it looks like today. So there's a lot to say for historic preservation. Next slide. And so I just threw in these are some of the houses that used to be on the Stonington side of the river that have gotten torn down for CVS and Citizens Bank and the Apple rehab and gas stations. So anyway, the 1980s shined a national spotlight on Mistick and boosted its appeal as a tourist destination. A screenwriter passing through town stopped for a slice of pizza at an eatery on Baptist Hill and got the idea for a coming-of-age film she named for the restaurant, Mistick Pizza. Local business people and residents griped all day in October 1987 while the bridge was closed to traffic for filming. Next slide. And here is a Stonington police officer directing traffic away from the bridge during filming on October 13th, 1987. Little did we know that this small budget film with a cast no one ever heard of would feature the breakout role for actress Julia Roberts, who went on to become a superstar. Next slide. More than 35 years later, Mistick is still cashing in on the popularity of the film. The Chamber of Commerce offers brochures about it, and websites give directions to all the places where the movie was filmed. In the late 1980s, as Mistick Pizza was being filmed, Stonington was reaping what it had sown by welcoming unlimited development for a decade and a half at the Golden Triangle around Exit 90. Next slide. In June 1986, the Mistick Hilton, a high-end hotel, opened on 9 acres at the corner of Coogan Boulevard and Clara Drive, directly across from the Mistick Aquarium. The $15 million Hilton was the largest hotel in the area. The 125,000 square foot facility boasted 187 guest rooms, a restaurant and bar capable of serving more than 125 guests, conference facilities that included a ballroom with accommodations for 325, 5 meeting rooms, and 3 conference suites. The hotel was built to attract the conference market and businessmen, owners said, noting that up until then, Mistick did not have facilities to accommodate that market. The architects also worked to make sure the large building fit in with its surroundings. In addition to giving it a nautical decor inside, the exterior of the hotel, with its earth-red brick facade, green metal trim, and flat roof with occasional peaks, was built to resemble the Rossi Velvet Mill, a short drive down Route 27 from the hotel. Next slide. The architects recommended the mill-style design. They said, "We knew it had to fit the landscape, and the only buildings of that size in southeastern Connecticut were mills. If we were to have some historical relationship to the area, we had to build a mill. And then we fit the most modern building into that design." With the opening of the Mistick Hilton, Stonington had reached the capacity for its sewer treatment plant. All new development in Mistick was halted while the sewer moratorium was declared until the treatment plant could be upgraded and expanded. Exit 90 and the roads around it also couldn't handle the amount of traffic coming into Mistick in the summer, especially on weekends. Traffic was backing up on I-95, causing dangerous conditions as vehicles tried to get into Mistick via the outdated and inadequate exit ramps. Town planner Bob Birmingham wasted no time blaming the state of Connecticut for the problem. He said, "Exit 90 is under-designed and poorly laid out. The state developed a rural exit at a little country interchange, totally ignoring what was there. There should have been some recognition on their part of the hell of a potential for development. We now have a hell of a congestion problem." Stonington appealed to the state to create an additional exit ramp at the site. Birmingham predicted in 1986 that it would take the state 10 years before the state addressed the problem. He based it on the fact that it had taken the state 5 years to put in the driveway at Route 27 opposite Coogan Boulevard to get to the Howard Johnson's and Old Mistick Motor Lodge after Stonington requested it. He was right. 10 years later, in 1996, the state came in and upgraded the exit ramp. It did not put in an additional exit ramp near Jerry Brown Road to pour traffic onto Coogan Boulevard, which is what the town had suggested. Instead, it added a lane to the northbound entrance ramp to I-95, giving traffic coming off the northbound exit ramp 2 choices. They could come down in the far right lane and go right and head down Route 27 to the seaport, or they could go straight across onto the entrance ramp. There was a second lane, and it took them right into the parking lots for Old Mistick Village and the Aquarium. The 1990s also brought a significant change to downtown Mistick. Next slide. Oh, wait a minute. I have to show you go back. That's right. I want to show you, this is what it's like today. So here's the Aquarium. No, that's the Old Mistick Village, the Aquarium. Bob Valenti, all of the stuff on the other side of the highway is there, all of the hotels and everything. So that's what it looks like in 2008. Okay. The 1990s also brought a significant change to downtown Mistick. Next slide. Okay. For 168 years, the Cottrell Lumber Company occupied the land along the river on Cottrell Street. And I included this photo because, not because I wanted to show a picture of Cottrell's, but because I wanted to show, this is what you could see from Cottrell's before they built Steamboat Wharf. You could see the Union Baptist Church, you could see, it was a really nice view. Gone. Yes. Next slide. So this is what it looks like today. You can see the tree lines, and right there is the steeple of the Union Baptist Church. And that's from Mistick River Park. That's basically from the same angle. That's why I don't like Steamboat Wharf. Okay. In 1988, Bill Dodge sold the 2.4-acre Cottrell property to Newport, Rhode Island developer who planned to build, what else? Condos. Now here's where the silver lining of having a moratorium on sewer hookups comes in. The developer was prevented from building at the site because of the moratorium. Around the same time, the bottom fell out of the real estate market. The property eventually went into foreclosure and was scheduled for public auction in December 1993. A group of Mistick residents knew the only way to protect the property from being developed was to buy it and turn it into a park. But where would they get the money, who would own it, and who would oversee it? Because Mistick's not a town. So they turned to the Mistick Fire District as the entity to own the park. The Mashantucket Pequots, who were making lots of money at their newly opened Foxwoods Casino, offered to lend the money to purchase the property. So once that loan was secured, the Fire District residents approved a tax increase to cover the loan. And then Fire District representatives went to the auction in Boston and put in the winning bid of $650,000 for the property. Wow. They paid cash. Wow. Next slide. So this is a picture. I wanted to show you what was at the park before the park was there. This is the Cottrell Lumber Company. And this is where the green is for the park. You can tell this is right along the river. Here's a boat. You can see this was known as Pine Alley. It was a great big long shed, and it was full of lumber. And you can tell that this was taken in the 50s because up here is the Strand Theater, which burned in the big fire in 1960. But anyway, that was what was there before the park. Okay, next slide. So construction of the park began in 1994. Residents and businesses gave money and raised funds to build the park. The Mashantuckets gave the money to buy the property, but then they did all kinds of fundraisers and a capital campaign to pay for the park. And this is the groundbreaking. This is Rob Simmons, back when he was the state representative from the 43rd District at that point, 1994. And this is Kathy Cook. She was our state senator. But this guy right here, he's the guy that got us the park. This is John Butler. And he was in it from the beginning. He was the one that spearheaded the whole thing. He was at the auction in Boston, and he made sure the whole thing was built. He put together the park commission. So anyway, and on the right, it just shows the park being built. The next slide. This is more of, there was 6 of the Cottrell Lumber Company buildings are still there, but they tore down they tore down Pine Alley and a bunch of other things to build the park. Next slide. Here's some more of it being torn down. Next. Here's some more where they're getting everything ready. Next. Okay. One of the reasons I wanted to use this slide is because this gives another example of, Stonington not having a historic district, because these 3 buildings right here this is the Whalers Inn. And if you're from Mistick, you know that the Hoxie House was at the corner of East Main Street and Cottrell Street from 1861, and it burned in a fire in 1975. It was Whalers Inn when it burned. But after it burned, the people that owned Whalers Inn built this to replace it. The Hoxie House looked like the building that's there now because they rebuilt the Hoxie House in 2000. But this is what was put back. If you had had a historic district, this would never have been allowed. So anyway, the Macbeths owned this, they built this, and then they sold the property to John McGee, and John McGee's group was the one that built the hotel that's at the corner now. But now Whalers Inn has new owners, and they're moving down the street. They tore this building down, and now they're restoring this building. I don't know what they're doing to it, but they're working on it. And they also own this building right here, so eventually they're going to be doing something with that. So in October 1995, the Mystic River Park opened to the public, providing access to the waterfront and great view of the hourly drawbridge openings. In its 28 years, the park has become the heart of downtown. It has band concerts in the summer, the Santa comes by tugboat the day after Thanksgiving, and it's home to our Christmas tree in the winter. Next slide. Oh, the park also provided a place for public toilets. And it ended the 11-year battle between the town of Groton and the town of Stonington over who should pay for public toilets. In the end, both towns provided public toilets, and the facilities on each side of the river opened just months apart. One opened in May of 2000. This is the Groton one on this side. It's on Water Street. And this is in the park. And this opened in July of 2000. Okay, let's see. In 2016, 43 years after Old Mystic Village and the Aquarium opened, Stonington was celebrating a new expansion of its tax base, this time driven by tourism and elder care. On February 16, 2016, the Day ran an article touting a dozen projects totaling more than $150 million, either underway or in the planning stages, in and around the Golden Triangle. Next slide. At the top of the list was a proposed $60 million health research and academic campus on 70 acres of the Perkins Farm. Development was now going to happen beyond Coogan Boulevard on the east side of Jerry Brown Road. And this is the Perkins Farm that they tore down to build it. So the Perkins project was projected to become the town's top taxpayer, generating $1.1 million in taxes annually. Next slide. And this is what is there, part of what's there. There's housing, and then on the right is the Hartford Healthcare facility. Already under construction in 2016, a short distance away on Clara Drive, was Masonic Care Assisted Living Facility, which was scheduled to open later in 2016. The nonprofit was slated to pay $140,000 a year to the town in lieu of taxes. Next slide. And this is Masonic Care. That's what it looks like today. 3 established nonprofit entities, Mystic Seaport, Mystic Aquarium, and the Denison Nature Center, also had major projects designed to bring jobs and tourism to the region. In 2016, the aquarium broke ground on a $5 million research center. Next slide. In April 2016, the Nature Center unveiled a renovated farmhouse and barn, the centerpiece of the $5 million Coogan Farm Nature and Heritage Center on Route 27. The property offers a variety of hiking trails for visitors. Next slide. In September 2016, the Seaport opened the $11.5 million Thompson Exhibit Building, which has since hosted major exhibits, an attempt to push Mistick toward being more of a year-round tourist destination. Next slide. Not to be left out, Old Mystic Village transformed its old movie theater into the Mistick Luxury Cinemas. In celebrating these business expansions, then Stonington First Selectman Rob Simmons touted all of the amenities already here in Mistick. He said, "We have history, culture, the environment, award-winning restaurants, entertainment. We've got shopping, but we're not a mall packed with big boxes. When you go to Old Mystic Village, you can sit next to a duck pond and visit a colonial meeting house. This is a place people want to visit and invest in." So Simmons' comments kind of vindicate Joyce and Jerry Olson after the shellacking they took from the New York Times reporter 40 years earlier. Next slide. So in 2023, 50 years after the opening of the aquarium in Old Mystic Village, Mistick is a full-fledged tourist destination. USA Today named Mistick number 4 on the top 10 places to visit this past summer. Tourists visiting Mistick generate lots of money for the local economy and for the state of Connecticut. But Mistick is still home to those of us who live here, and maintaining a good quality of life for us continues to be a challenge. In September 2022, Day columnist David Collins wrote a piece in which he asked, "Has Mistick reached its tipping point?" He said he had heard from a lot of people that there is out-of-control development, explosive growth, and increasingly snarled traffic. He waxed nostalgic about the Mistick of the 1980s, when it felt less like a tourist town and more like a hometown. He recalled the peeling paint on many of the downtown buildings and some of his favorite places: BB's Dairy, Two Sisters Deli, John's Bar, Cottrell's Hardware Store, and the vegetarian restaurant Mischievous Carrot. In the online comments section of the column, readers weighed the pros and cons as Mistick has evolved over the past few decades. I thought Lauren Graham's comment encapsulated the challenge Mistick faces in creating a top tourist destination and also a place where people live year-round. She wrote, "Quality of life is what local government should focus on. It is a delicate balancing act to get it right. Local businesses need support, and tourism is a critical piece. Yet our small-town charm is the driver of our tourism, and small-town charm requires neighborhoods with happy residents." I'm going to end tonight with 2 photos of the Seaport Marine property at 2 Washington Street at the end of Cottrell Street. In June 1875, this property was the site of the worst fire in Mistick history. The Oceanic Woolen Mill burned. Next slide. On November 28, 2022, there was also another spectacular fire at this same location when the 2 warehouses at Seaport Marine burned. Next slide. So this is what the site looks like today. Whatever is proposed for this site will be the next big challenge between developers and residents. And if past history is any guideline, Stonington officials will put increased tax revenue ahead of its aesthetic values and impact on residents. I think residents on this side of the river are going to regret not having a historic district in place. Historic district commissions make mistakes, and these districts have a lot of restrictions, but they also offer a lot of protection. And I think the protections outweigh the restrictions. That's it.
Any questions? Any questions?
Yeah, I'll be happy to take questions, but before I take a question, I just want to put in a plug for my talk in December. On December 6th, just in case you're interested in nostalgia of Mistick, I've got 108 photos of Mistick from 1976. So if you grew up in Mistick or you're interested in it, you can come back and see Archie's Soda Shop and Oliver's Record Store and the Yellow Brick Mall, Santon Chevrolet, the Jolly Beggars. So please, come back. All right, you have a question? I'm looking at you.
Relative to Coogan Boulevard and Route 27, you said it wasn't there before the state put in exit 90.
No, there was no Coogan Boulevard.
But we look, so I'm fairly new, we look at Coogan Boulevard today and we saw all the historic homes at the seaport.
Oh, no, that's not Coogan Boulevard.
Oh,
Coogan Boulevard runs from Route 27 past it's the road to get to Old Mistick Village and Route 20, this is Route 27 out here that goes,
Yeah, you're thinking. Oh, I'm thinking of 27.
yeah, 27. No, Coogan Boulevard runs from Route 27 to Jerry Brown Road. You can go to McQuaid's that way, and that's how you get to.
It's that strip. Okay. My next quick question is, you talk about the triangle. I don't see the triangle. What is the triangle you're talking about?
Okay.
The highway.
All right, so it would be Coogan Boulevard, Route 27, and Jerry Brown Road.
Oh, okay. Right there. Okay.
That is a triangle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
And that's the hill and this.
The Hilton, yeah.
Mistick Village.
The village was built on Barnes property. Where did the Coogan property start?
Oh, I don't know. I'm guessing the other side of, yeah.
On the Mystic side.
It's got to be going down toward Elm Grove on that other side, because that's where Ed Coogan lived.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he didn't own he was right next to the Bonds property then,
yeah,
before the road went in.
I have a question.
Yep.
The Holstein property that burned, they were trying to get some kind of
Stand
development.
up so people could hear your question.
The Holstein property that burned,
yeah.
they were trying to get something in there before that happened, and it didn't go through.
Right.
And I'm thinking it's because of the water problem, am I correct?
I don't know. I know there was a lot of, she's asking about the proposal that was for 2 Washington Street.
Hotel and like a lot of other things.
But
Marilyn, that property is adjacent to the river, and it therefore it is zoned in such a way that it has to have water-dependent use,
oh, okay,
and condos don't have a water-dependent.
okay.
Okay.
That's why.
But they'll come back with something for it at some point.
Oh, yeah, they'll try again.
It was overly proposed too. There's too much congestion development there with the lack of traffic, and there's something to do with the aesthetics and also the flooding, potential flooding there.
Is that it? Oh, yes.
Maybe Kathy O'Beirne can answer. We live on the condos that are built on the west side of Allen Street, so we're part of the problem. But we were told, and several other neighbors told me, that the east side of Allen Street was set by the state originally, that there would be no
Curb cuts.
road curb cuts.
That's exactly correct, but they didn't live up to it. There's like 5 of them there now. Yeah, encroached more on the Pequot Woods. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking on the east side.
Yeah, there's just one.
There's one.
Oh, there's one new cut. I
the
saw that,
development
yeah.
just started.
Yeah.
Well, it started.
That's a single house, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Well, it's a 5-lot development.
That new curb cut is a 5-lot?
Yeah,
No.
there's 4 coming in
Oh.
off Pequot Avenue, and 1 coming off of Allen Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's
I
a road
don't
going through,
go
but
on
it's
Pequot
not
Avenue.
public.
The curb cut restriction was just on Allen Street.
Yeah.
So I was surprised to see that house going myself.
Yeah.
Not how they did that.
Any indication what the driving force for the state of Connecticut was to put in 89 and 90?
To get to Mystic Seaport wanted the highway to come through.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any oversee planning, about what happens to, say, our towns, Mistick, Groton, Stonington, that there are people looking at the pros and cons of different things that they want to put in?
Well, I think both towns have planning and zoning commissions, and you have to go through that. And in Groton, in Mystic, you have to go through the Historic District Commission for permission to do whatever you're doing with your properties.
But there's no, long-term looking at things and saying this would be a benefit or this will cause a great detriment, other than planning and zoning, you know what I mean? Like what fits into our legal plans.
Dual town.
Probably not.
I was very surprised when Groton approved the big yellow building next to SIFT, because it used to be extremely difficult to do anything along that stretch of water.
Oh, I could have said something about that tonight, but my talk was long enough. Because I walk through there, I walk through the Steamboat Wharf parking lot every morning on my morning walk. And I've got a block of buildings, so I can't see the river. And now, I used to be able to see Union Baptist Church when I walked through there. Now that big thing's there. It's like walking through a wall of buildings. So,
Something's changed.
yeah.
Wasn't in the 70s or 80s there a proposal to put a multi-level parking garage where that parking lot is now? That Steamboat parking lot?
Steamboat parking.
The one by the museum parking lot?
I don't
Where
know.
they filled in the cove.
I don't know.
That's owned by the museum.
Now, they need to repave it because it's got some craters in there in that parking
But
lot.
there was a proposal quite a while ago. There was a proposal a long time ago to put in a
It
garage
wasn't
that got
proposed
shut
by
down.
the museum.
No, it wasn't proposed by the
Art
museum.
Association.
Right, but
There's a small part of it near the buildings, the rear side of the building, that
Okay.
is not owned by the museum. There's I would say under oh, maybe 20%, maybe less. And that, because you have the condos, that's how they were able to get
Yeah.
the condos in there, because they had to have access.
And Marilyn,
Yeah,
a very little known tidbit about the history of Allen Street. When it was a stub, it was Cherry Street.
Cherry Street.
oh,
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay.
That was wonderful.
if not, Marilyn, excellent job.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Oh, thanks. You gonna talk? I'm gonna sit down.
Talk is in December, Marilyn.
December 6th, come on back to see, take a walk down memory lane.